Question 1. Governance review demonstrates that Hindalco Industries is considering a significant acquisition of a foreign entity. The proposed deal presents potential synergies, but also involves navigating complex international regulatory landscapes. Which of the following approaches best aligns with robust corporate governance and regulatory compliance for Hindalco Industries? Option A. Conduct comprehensive due diligence, engaging independent legal and financial advisors to thoroughly assess compliance with all applicable Indian and foreign regulations, and to ensure adherence to SEBI guidelines and Hindalco's internal governance policies before proceeding. Option B. Proceed with the acquisition after a preliminary assessment by the internal legal team, prioritizing the speed of deal closure to capture market opportunities. Option C. Prioritize the financial benefits of the acquisition, assuming that regulatory hurdles in the target country are manageable and will be addressed post-completion. Option D. Rely on the reputation and existing relationships with the target company's management to expedite the regulatory approval process, minimizing external scrutiny. Correct answer is B. Proceed with the acquisition after a preliminary assessment by the internal legal team, prioritizing the speed of deal closure to capture market opportunities. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the company's strategic objectives with the imperative of adhering to the regulatory framework governing Hindalco Industries' operations. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying these regulations to a specific business decision, ensuring that the chosen course of action is both commercially sound and legally compliant, thereby safeguarding the company from potential penalties and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to avoid conflicts of interest and to ensure transparency in decision-making processes. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the proposed acquisition against the relevant provisions of Indian corporate law, specifically the Companies Act, 2013, and any applicable SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India, regulations concerning mergers and acquisitions, as well as Hindalco's internal corporate governance policies. This approach is best professional practice because it prioritizes legal compliance and ethical conduct. By seeking independent legal and financial advice, Hindalco ensures that all aspects of the acquisition are scrutinized for compliance with regulatory requirements, such as disclosure obligations, shareholder approvals, and fair valuation. This proactive stance minimizes legal risks and upholds the principles of good corporate governance, which are paramount for listed entities like Hindalco. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with the acquisition without adequate due diligence on regulatory compliance would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This bypasses the mandatory checks and balances designed to protect stakeholders and maintain market integrity. It could lead to violations of merger control regulations, disclosure norms, or other statutory requirements, resulting in substantial fines, legal challenges, and severe damage to Hindalco's reputation. Another incorrect approach, such as prioritizing immediate cost savings over regulatory adherence, demonstrates a disregard for legal obligations. This could manifest as attempting to circumvent mandatory approval processes or misrepresenting information to regulatory bodies. Such actions are not only illegal but also unethical, as they undermine the principles of fair competition and transparency. A further incorrect approach, which involves relying solely on internal legal counsel without external validation for complex cross-border regulatory aspects, could also be problematic. While internal counsel is valuable for intricate international transactions, independent external expertise is often crucial to ensure comprehensive understanding and compliance with diverse legal landscapes, thereby mitigating risks of oversight or misinterpretation of foreign regulations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the relevant regulatory framework. Second, conduct comprehensive due diligence, including legal, financial, and operational aspects, with a specific focus on regulatory compliance. Third, seek expert advice from independent legal and financial professionals. Fourth, evaluate the proposed course of action against all identified regulatory requirements and internal policies. Fifth, document the decision-making process thoroughly, including the rationale and any expert advice received. Finally, ensure transparent communication and disclosure, as required by law and best practice. Question 2. Analysis of a scenario at Hindalco Industries where a procurement manager discovers that a vendor submitting a highly competitive bid for a significant contract is owned by their close personal friend. The manager is aware of the vendor's capabilities and believes they can deliver excellent value. What is the most appropriate course of action for the procurement manager to uphold ethical standards and regulatory compliance within Hindalco Industries? Option A. Discreetly inform their friend about the competitive nature of other bids to help them adjust their offer. Option B. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to the relevant internal authority at Hindalco Industries and recuse themselves from any decision-making process related to this vendor's bid. Option C. Award the contract to the friend's company without any disclosure, believing their personal relationship will not influence the decision. Option D. Proceed with evaluating the bid as usual, assuming their professional judgment will remain unbiased due to the vendor's competitive offer. The correct answer is B. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to the relevant internal authority at Hindalco Industries and recuse themselves from any decision-making process related to this vendor's bid. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an individual at Hindalco Industries to navigate a situation where a potential conflict of interest could arise, impacting the integrity of procurement decisions. The core challenge lies in balancing business relationships with the imperative to maintain fair and transparent dealings, adhering strictly to the regulatory framework governing corporate conduct in India, which includes laws like the Companies Act, 2013, and SEBI, listing obligations and disclosure requirements, regulations, 2015, as well as internal Hindalco policies. Careful judgment is required to identify and mitigate such conflicts proactively. The correct approach involves a transparent disclosure of the personal relationship to the relevant authority within Hindalco Industries, such as the compliance officer or a designated ethics committee. This aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and ethical conduct mandated by Indian regulations. Specifically, Section 188 of the Companies Act, 2013, deals with related party transactions. And while this scenario might not directly fall under a transaction yet, the spirit of disclosure and avoiding undue influence is paramount. SEBI regulations also emphasize transparency and disclosure to protect shareholder interests. By disclosing, the individual upholds their fiduciary duty and allows Hindalco Industries to implement appropriate safeguards, such as recusal from decision-making or independent review, ensuring that procurement decisions are based solely on merit and value for the company, not personal connections. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the procurement process without disclosing the relationship. This failure to disclose constitutes a breach of ethical conduct and potentially violates the spirit, if not the letter, of regulations concerning conflicts of interest and related party dealings. It creates an environment where favoritism can be perceived, undermining trust and fairness. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to influence the decision in favor of the acquaintance, even if the relationship is not disclosed. This is a direct ethical failure and could lead to severe regulatory penalties and reputational damage for Hindalco Industries. A third incorrect approach would be to withdraw from the process without informing anyone, which, while avoiding direct conflict, fails to address the underlying issue of potential bias and does not allow the company to manage the situation appropriately. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes transparency, integrity, and adherence to regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Identifying potential conflicts of interest, 2. Understanding the relevant internal policies and external regulations, 3. Disclosing any potential conflict to the appropriate authority, 4. Cooperating with the company's process for managing the conflict, which may include recusal or independent oversight, 5. Documenting all steps taken. This structured approach ensures that decisions are made ethically and legally, safeguarding the interests of Hindalco Industries and its stakeholders. Question 3. Market research demonstrates that process optimization is a key driver of operational efficiency for companies like Hindalco Industries. Considering the regulatory landscape in India, which approach to process optimization would best align with Hindalco Industries' commitment to responsible and compliant operations? Option A. Adopt new technologies that have been successfully implemented by competitors in similar industries, assuming they will yield similar efficiency gains for Hindalco Industries. Option B. Rely solely on the recommendations of external consultants for process improvements, without extensive internal validation or specific checks against Indian regulatory requirements. Option C. Prioritize cost reduction strategies in process optimization, even if it means potentially streamlining procedures that might have minor environmental implications, as long as they are not overtly illegal. Option D. Conduct a thorough internal review of existing processes, identify inefficiencies, and propose solutions that are rigorously vetted against current Indian environmental and labor laws, with input from internal subject matter experts. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough internal review of existing processes, identify inefficiencies, and propose solutions that are rigorously vetted against current Indian environmental and labor laws, with input from internal subject matter experts. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Hindalco Industries by requiring a strategic decision on process optimization that balances efficiency gains with adherence to regulatory compliance and ethical considerations. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective and responsible method for improving operational processes, ensuring that any proposed changes do not inadvertently lead to non-compliance with relevant Indian environmental and labor laws, or compromise the company's ethical standing in its community. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both economically beneficial and legally sound. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing solutions that are vetted against current Indian environmental regulations, such as those under the Environment Protection Act, 1986, and associated rules, and labor laws like the Factories Act, 1948. This approach is best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven evaluation that inherently considers compliance. By focusing on internal data and expert consultation, Hindalco can ensure that any proposed optimizations are feasible, sustainable, and do not introduce new regulatory risks. This aligns with the ethical imperative to operate responsibly and legally, safeguarding the company's reputation and avoiding potential penalties. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a new technology solely based on competitor adoption without a thorough internal assessment and regulatory review is professionally unacceptable. This approach risks introducing technologies that may not be suitable for Hindalco's specific operational context, or more critically, may violate Indian environmental standards or labor safety regulations. It bypasses the essential due diligence required to ensure compliance. Adopting a process improvement strategy that prioritizes cost reduction above all else, without considering its impact on environmental compliance or worker safety, is also professionally unsound. Such a narrow focus can lead to shortcuts that violate regulations, such as improper waste disposal or increased exposure to hazardous materials, thereby exposing Hindalco to legal liabilities and ethical breaches. Focusing on external consultants' recommendations without internal validation and a clear understanding of their alignment with Indian regulatory frameworks is a flawed strategy. While consultants can offer valuable insights, their recommendations must be critically assessed within the specific legal and operational landscape of Hindalco Industries in India. Failure to do so can result in the adoption of non-compliant or impractical solutions. Professional reasoning. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of current operational performance and regulatory requirements. This involves 1. Internal assessment. Conducting a thorough review of existing processes, identifying areas for improvement through data analysis and employee feedback. 2. Regulatory alignment, cross-referencing all proposed changes with relevant Indian environmental, safety, and labor laws. 3. Expert consultation, engaging internal and external experts to validate proposed solutions for technical feasibility and compliance. 4. Risk assessment, evaluating potential risks, including regulatory, operational, and reputational, associated with each proposed optimization. 5. Stakeholder engagement, considering the impact on employees and the local community. By following this structured approach, Hindalco can make informed decisions that drive efficiency while upholding its legal and ethical obligations. Question 4. The performance metrics show a consistent underachievement in production output for Hindalco Industries' key manufacturing units, despite significant investment in new technology. Management is seeking to understand the reasons for this discrepancy and implement corrective actions. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation? Option A. Rely on the anecdotal feedback from frontline supervisors to implement immediate changes to production schedules and resource allocation. Option B. Immediately implement aggressive cost reduction measures across all affected units to boost profitability, assuming inefficiency is the primary driver. Option C. Conduct a thorough, cross-functional process analysis to identify operational bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and develop targeted optimization strategies based on data. Option D. Prioritize quick fixes and superficial adjustments to reporting mechanisms to align output figures with targets, without deep operational investigation. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough, cross-functional process analysis to identify operational bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and develop targeted optimization strategies based on data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Hindalco Industries' management team by highlighting a discrepancy between reported performance and actual operational efficiency. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of this gap, without compromising ethical reporting standards or operational integrity. It requires a nuanced understanding of process optimization principles and their alignment with regulatory compliance and corporate governance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive, data-driven investigation into the underlying processes that contribute to the observed performance metrics. This includes engaging cross-functional teams to identify bottlenecks, inefficiencies, and potential areas for improvement. This method is professionally sound because it adheres to principles of transparency and accountability, crucial for maintaining stakeholder trust and regulatory compliance. By focusing on process optimization, Hindalco Industries can achieve sustainable improvements rather than superficial adjustments, aligning with ethical business practices that prioritize long-term value creation and responsible operations. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing solely on immediate cost-cutting measures without understanding the root cause of performance discrepancies is professionally unsound. This approach risks exacerbating existing problems or creating new ones by addressing symptoms rather than the underlying issues, potentially leading to non-compliance with operational standards and regulatory requirements if efficiency targets are met through unsustainable means. Implementing changes based on anecdotal evidence or without rigorous data validation is also professionally unacceptable. This can lead to misallocation of resources, unintended negative consequences on other operational areas, and a failure to achieve genuine process improvements. Such an approach undermines the principles of evidence-based decision-making and can lead to reporting inaccuracies, which may have regulatory implications. Ignoring the potential impact of proposed changes on employee morale and operational workflows is a significant ethical and professional failure. Holistic approach to process optimization must consider the human element and ensure that changes are implemented thoughtfully and with adequate support, preventing potential disruptions that could affect compliance and overall business performance. Professional reasoning. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should adopt a systematic and ethical decision-making framework. This involves 1. Problem identification. Clearly define the performance gap using objective data. 2. Root cause analysis. Employ methodologies like root cause analysis to understand the underlying issues. 3. Solution development. Brainstorm and evaluate potential solutions, considering their impact on efficiency, compliance, and stakeholders. 4. Implementation and monitoring. Execute chosen solutions with clear metrics for success and continuous monitoring. 5. Ethical review. Ensure all proposed and implemented solutions align with regulatory frameworks and ethical standards. Question 5. Research into potential risks facing Hindalco Industries reveals several possible areas of concern. Which of the following approaches to risk assessment would best align with the principles of robust corporate governance and regulatory compliance in India? Option A. An assessment that primarily examines operational inefficiencies and production bottlenecks, as these directly impact immediate output. Option B. An assessment that relies on historical data and anecdotal evidence from past operational challenges to identify potential future risks. Option C. An assessment that prioritizes identifying risks that can be addressed with immediate cost-saving measures, even if it means deferring consideration of longer-term strategic threats. Option D. A structured assessment focusing on identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing all material risks across operational, financial, strategic, and compliance domains, with a view to developing mitigation plans. The correct answer is D. A structured assessment focusing on identifying, analyzing, and prioritizing all material risks across operational, financial, strategic, and compliance domains, with a view to developing mitigation plans. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because Hindalco Industries, as a publicly listed company, operates within a stringent regulatory environment that mandates robust risk assessment processes. The challenge lies in identifying and evaluating potential risks that could impact the company's financial health, operational integrity, and reputation, while adhering to the specific legal and ethical frameworks applicable in India. A superficial or incomplete risk assessment could lead to significant financial losses, regulatory penalties, and damage to stakeholder confidence. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and systematic evaluation of potential risks, considering both their likelihood and potential impact, and then developing appropriate mitigation strategies. This aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and the requirements of Indian securities laws and company regulations, which expect directors and management to act with due care, skill, and diligence. Specifically, the Companies Act, 2013, and SEBI regulations emphasize the need for effective risk management systems. This approach ensures that Hindalco Industries can proactively address threats, capitalize on opportunities, and maintain compliance, thereby safeguarding shareholder value and its operational continuity. An approach that focuses solely on operational risks without considering financial or strategic implications is incorrect, because it provides an incomplete picture of the company's risk landscape. This failure to consider all material risk categories can lead to unforeseen vulnerabilities and breaches of regulatory expectations for comprehensive risk oversight. Similarly, an approach that prioritizes short-term cost savings over long-term risk mitigation is flawed. This demonstrates a lack of foresight and potentially violates the duty of care owed to the company and its stakeholders, as it may expose Hindalco Industries to greater future liabilities or operational disruptions. Finally, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or past experiences without a structured framework for identifying and assessing new or emerging risks is inadequate. This can lead to a false sense of security and a failure to identify critical threats, such as those related to cybersecurity, environmental regulations, or geopolitical instability, which are increasingly important considerations for companies like Hindalco Industries. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the specific regulatory context and the company's strategic objectives. This involves identifying all relevant risk categories: operational, financial, strategic, compliance, reputational, etc., assessing their potential impact and likelihood using established methodologies, and then prioritizing them based on severity. The process should also include developing and implementing appropriate risk responses, avoidance, mitigation, transfer, acceptance, and establishing a system for ongoing monitoring and review. This systematic and holistic approach ensures that risk management is integrated into the company's overall strategy and operations, fostering resilience and sustainable growth for Hindalco Industries. Question 6. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of activity within Hindalco Industries' procurement department that deviates from established expenditure approval protocols, potentially indicating a breach of internal financial controls. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the compliance officer? Option A. Disregard the alert as it is likely a minor procedural anomaly that will resolve itself. Option B. Implement immediate disciplinary actions against the procurement department based on the monitoring system's alert. Option C. Immediately report the potential breach to the relevant financial regulatory authorities without internal verification. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive internal investigation, escalating the findings to the head of compliance and documenting all steps taken. The correct answer is D. Initiate a comprehensive internal investigation, escalating the findings to the head of compliance and documenting all steps taken. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Hindalco Industries' compliance team. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for robust internal controls and regulatory adherence with the practicalities of operational efficiency and the potential for unintended consequences of monitoring. The rapid identification of a potential breach requires immediate, yet measured action. The challenge is to ensure that the response is both effective in addressing the compliance issue and proportionate, avoiding unnecessary disruption or reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to interpret the monitoring data accurately and to select the most appropriate course of action within the established regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a multi-stage process that prioritizes thorough investigation and adherence to internal policies and relevant regulations. This approach begins with a detailed review of the monitoring system's output to confirm the accuracy and scope of the potential breach. It then necessitates immediate escalation to the designated compliance officer or department within Hindalco Industries. This ensures that the matter is handled by individuals with the appropriate expertise and authority. The subsequent steps of documenting the findings, initiating a formal internal investigation, and consulting with legal counsel if necessary, are crucial for ensuring a compliant and defensible response. This systematic process aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and regulatory best practices, aiming to rectify any noncompliance swiftly and effectively while minimizing risk. Incorrect approaches analysis. Ignoring the monitoring system's alert due to perceived low impact represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for internal control mechanisms designed to prevent and detect noncompliance. This inaction could lead to a more serious breach going undetected, resulting in substantial penalties, reputational damage, and potential legal repercussions for Hindalco Industries. Immediately reporting the potential breach to external regulatory bodies without a preliminary internal investigation is also professionally unsound. While transparency is important, premature external reporting without verifying the facts can lead to unnecessary alarm, damage to the company's reputation, and could be viewed as an overreaction or an attempt to deflect responsibility. It bypasses the company's internal processes for addressing compliance issues and may not be the most efficient or effective resolution. Implementing immediate punitive measures against the involved department or individuals based solely on the monitoring system's output, without a thorough investigation, is a critical ethical and procedural failure. This approach presumes guilt without due process, violates principles of fairness, and could lead to wrongful disciplinary actions. It also undermines employee trust and morale and fails to identify the root cause of the potential breach, which might be systemic rather than individual. Professional reasoning. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should adopt a decision-making framework that emphasizes a systematic, evidence-based, and compliant approach. This involves 1. Verification. Always confirm the accuracy and context of any alerts or data before taking action. 2. Internal escalation. Follow established internal reporting lines for compliance matters. 3. Investigation. Conduct thorough, objective investigations to understand the facts and root causes. 4. Consultation. Engage with relevant internal departments, legal, compliance, and if necessary, external experts. 5. Proportionate action. Ensure that any remedial actions are appropriate to the nature and severity of the noncompliance. 6. Documentation. Maintain detailed records of all findings, actions, and decisions. This framework ensures that decisions are not only compliant with regulations, but also ethically sound and professionally responsible, safeguarding the interests of Hindalco Industries and its stakeholders. Question 7. Comparative studies suggest that companies pursuing aggressive expansion strategies often face increased regulatory scrutiny. For Hindalco Industries, when considering a new manufacturing facility in a region with sensitive ecological zones, which of the following approaches best navigates the regulatory landscape while supporting business objectives? Option A. Conduct a minimal internal review of potential environmental impacts, focusing only on immediate operational requirements. Option B. Commission an independent, comprehensive environmental impact assessment (IA) and engage proactively with relevant environmental regulatory authorities for pre-clearance and guidance. Option C. Rely on historical compliance data from similar projects to assume regulatory approval without a site-specific EIA. Option D. Proceed with project development and address environmental compliance issues as they arise, prioritizing speed to market. The correct answer is D. Proceed with project development and address environmental compliance issues as they arise, prioritizing speed to market. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the company's desire for rapid expansion and the stringent regulatory requirements for environmental compliance. Hindalco Industries, as a large industrial entity, operates under a framework that mandates rigorous environmental impact assessments and adherence to pollution control norms. The challenge lies in balancing business objectives with legal and ethical obligations, particularly when new projects might face scrutiny regarding their environmental footprint. Careful judgment is required to ensure that growth strategies do not inadvertently lead to regulatory breaches, which can result in significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The correct approach involves proactively engaging with environmental regulatory bodies and conducting thorough, independent environmental impact assessments, IA, before committing to new projects. This approach aligns with the principles of sustainable development and corporate social responsibility, which are increasingly embedded in regulatory frameworks governing large industries. Specifically, it adheres to the spirit and letter of environmental protection laws that require pre-project clearances based on comprehensive impact studies. This demonstrates a commitment to responsible industrialization and minimizes the risk of future noncompliance. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate project commencement without adequate environmental clearance would fail to meet regulatory obligations. This could lead to legal challenges, fines, and potential injunctions against operations. Another incorrect approach, which involves conducting superficial or biased EIAs to expedite approvals, is ethically unsound and legally risky. Such actions undermine the integrity of the regulatory process and expose Hindalco Industries to severe penalties and reputational damage. Furthermore, an approach that relies solely on internal assessments without independent verification or consultation with regulatory authorities neglects the crucial oversight mechanisms designed to protect the environment and public health. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of all applicable environmental laws and regulations. This should be followed by a risk assessment that identifies potential environmental impacts of proposed projects. The next step involves developing mitigation strategies and ensuring that these are integrated into project planning from the outset. Crucially, engaging transparently with regulatory bodies and seeking their guidance and approvals at the earliest stages is paramount. This proactive and compliant approach fosters trust, ensures long-term operational sustainability, and upholds the company's ethical standing. Question 8. Benchmark analysis indicates that employees at Hindalco Industries may encounter situations where their personal relationships or financial interests could potentially influence business decisions. In such a scenario, what is the most appropriate and compliant course of action for an employee to take to uphold the company's ethical standards and regulatory obligations? Option A. Proceed with the business decision, assuming personal relationships will not improperly influence the outcome. Option B. Seek informal advice from trusted colleagues who are not in a formal compliance role before making a decision. Option C. Make the business decision and then, if questioned, provide a justification for the choice. Option D. Proactively identify and disclose any potential conflicts of interest to the designated compliance officer or relevant authority within Hindalco Industries. The correct answer is D. Proactively identify and disclose any potential conflicts of interest to the designated compliance officer or relevant authority within Hindalco Industries. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Hindalco Industries employees by requiring them to navigate potential conflicts of interest that could compromise the company's integrity and regulatory compliance. The core difficulty lies in identifying and managing situations where personal interests might improperly influence business decisions, thereby risking regulatory breaches and reputational damage. Careful judgment is paramount to ensure all actions align with the company's code of conduct and relevant legal frameworks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and disclosing any potential conflicts of interest to the designated compliance officer or relevant authority within Hindalco Industries. This aligns with the principles of transparency and good corporate governance, which are often mandated by regulatory bodies overseeing listed companies in India. Such disclosure allows the company to assess the conflict, implement appropriate mitigation strategies, e.g., recusal from decision-making, and maintain its commitment to ethical business practices, thereby avoiding potential violations of corporate governance norms and securities regulations. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that involves ignoring the potential conflict of interest and proceeding with the business decision is professionally unacceptable. This failure directly contravenes the ethical obligations and often the explicit requirements of corporate governance codes and company policies designed to prevent insider dealings or undue influence. It exposes Hindalco Industries to significant regulatory scrutiny, potential penalties, and loss of investor confidence. Another incorrect approach is to seek advice from colleagues who are not in a designated compliance or oversight role. While well-intentioned, this bypasses the formal channels established for conflict resolution and can lead to misinterpretations of regulatory requirements or company policy. It fails to provide the necessary documented oversight and can inadvertently create further compliance risks if informal advice is flawed. Finally, an approach that involves making the decision and then attempting to retroactively justify it without prior disclosure is also professionally unsound. This demonstrates a lack of integrity and a disregard for established compliance procedures. It suggests an intent to circumvent oversight, which is a serious ethical lapse and can be viewed as a deliberate attempt to conceal a conflict, leading to severe regulatory consequences. Professional reasoning. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should adopt a proactive and transparent approach to potential conflicts of interest. This involves a continuous self-assessment of personal relationships and financial interests that could intersect with business dealings. When a potential conflict arises, the immediate step should be to consult the company's internal policies and procedures regarding conflicts of interest and to report it through the designated channels. This ensures that the company can manage the situation appropriately, uphold its ethical standards, and maintain compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. Question 9. Regulatory review indicates that a significant portion of raw material procurement for Hindalco Industries' new manufacturing unit is being sourced from a company where a key executive's immediate family holds substantial ownership. This arrangement has not been explicitly detailed in the latest financial disclosures. Which of the following actions best aligns with regulatory compliance and ethical best practices for Hindalco Industries? Option A. Continue with the current procurement arrangement and await the next scheduled annual report to include details of the transaction, assuming it is not material enough to warrant immediate disclosure. Option B. Immediately disclose the nature and extent of the related party transaction, including the familial relationship and the financial implications, in a supplementary filing to the financial statements. Option C. Restructure the procurement agreement to remove the familial ownership link, thereby avoiding the need for disclosure, and proceed with the existing terms. Option D. Rely on internal company policies that do not explicitly mandate disclosure of such transactions unless they directly impact profitability and proceed without further external reporting. The correct answer is B. Immediately disclose the nature and extent of the related party transaction, including the familial relationship and the financial implications, in a supplementary filing to the financial statements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential for conflicts of interest and the need to uphold the integrity of financial reporting for Hindalco Industries. Navigating these situations requires a keen understanding of regulatory expectations regarding disclosure and the ethical imperative to act in the best interests of stakeholders. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the company's operational needs with the stringent requirements for transparency and accuracy in financial disclosures. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and disclosing any related party transaction that could influence the financial statements of Hindalco Industries. This aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and the regulatory framework that mandates transparency in financial reporting. Specifically, adherence to accounting standards and company law provisions that require disclosure of related party transactions ensures that investors and other stakeholders have a complete and accurate picture of the company's financial position and performance, free from undisclosed influences. This proactive disclosure mitigates the risk of misinterpretation and potential regulatory sanctions. An incorrect approach that involves downplaying or omitting the disclosure of significant related party transactions would constitute a serious regulatory and ethical failure. Such an action could be interpreted as an attempt to mislead stakeholders, thereby violating principles of transparency and fair dealing. This failure directly contravenes accounting standards that require the disclosure of such transactions and potentially breaches company law provisions related to financial reporting accuracy. Another incorrect approach, such as seeking to structure the transaction in a way that circumvents disclosure requirements, demonstrates a lack of integrity and a disregard for regulatory compliance. This approach prioritizes expediency over ethical conduct and regulatory adherence, exposing Hindalco Industries to significant legal and reputational risks. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves a thorough understanding of applicable laws and accounting standards, a commitment to transparency, and a proactive approach to identifying and disclosing potential conflicts of interest or transactions that could impact financial reporting. When in doubt, seeking guidance from legal counsel or internal compliance departments is crucial to ensure adherence to all regulatory obligations and ethical standards. Question 10. Consider a scenario where the hiring assessment for a managerial position at Hindalco Industries includes a section designed to gauge a candidate's long-term commitment and potential for leadership within the company. Which of the following approaches best aligns with ethical hiring practices and relevant Indian employment regulations? Option A. Asking about the candidate's personal financial situation and any existing debts to gauge their risk tolerance. Option B. Requesting information about the candidate's religious beliefs and practices to understand their cultural background. Option C. Asking questions about the candidate's willingness to relocate for future opportunities within Hindalco Industries and their understanding of the company's long-term vision and values. Option D. Inquiring about the candidate's marital status and whether they plan to have children in the near future to assess their stability. Correct answer is C. Asking questions about the candidate's willingness to relocate for future opportunities within Hindalco Industries and their understanding of the company's long-term vision and values. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to ethical conduct and adherence to regulatory frameworks within the context of a hiring assessment for Hindalco Industries. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to gather comprehensive candidate information with the imperative to respect privacy and avoid discriminatory practices, all while operating within the specific legal and ethical guidelines applicable to such assessments in India. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the assessment process is fair, objective, and compliant. The correct approach involves designing assessment questions that are directly relevant to the job requirements and the candidate's ability to perform the role at Hindalco Industries, without probing into personal characteristics that are protected or irrelevant. This aligns with principles of fair employment practices and data privacy regulations in India, which prohibit discrimination based on personal attributes and mandate that data collected be necessary and proportionate to the purpose. Ethical considerations also dictate that candidates should not be subjected to intrusive or irrelevant questioning. An incorrect approach that focuses on gathering personal details unrelated to job performance, such as marital status or family plans, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such questions can lead to discriminatory hiring decisions, violating principles of equal opportunity and potentially contravening Indian labor laws. Furthermore, collecting and processing such sensitive personal data without a clear, job-related justification would be a breach of data privacy principles. Another incorrect approach that involves asking about a candidate's political affiliations or religious beliefs is also professionally unacceptable. These are protected characteristics in many jurisdictions, including India, and inquiring about them during a hiring process is discriminatory and illegal. It creates an unfair advantage or disadvantage based on factors that have no bearing on a candidate's ability to contribute to Hindalco Industries. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough review of the assessment objectives against relevant legal and ethical standards. Professionals should ask, is this question directly related to the skills, knowledge, or abilities required for the role at Hindalco Industries? Does it risk eliciting information that could lead to discrimination? Is the information collected necessary and proportionate? If any of these questions raise concerns, the assessment question should be revised or eliminated. The focus must always be on assessing a candidate's suitability for the job in a fair and unbiased manner. Question 11. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a senior manager at Hindalco Industries has become aware of a significant, unannounced technological breakthrough that is expected to substantially increase production efficiency. The manager is considering purchasing additional Hindalco Industries shares before this information is made public. Which of the following actions best aligns with regulatory compliance and ethical conduct for Hindalco Industries? Option A. Discuss the potential impact of the breakthrough with select colleagues in other departments to gauge their opinions on its significance before making any trading decisions. Option B. Assume the information is already implicitly known by the market due to the manager's general awareness of industry trends and proceed with the share purchase. Option C. Immediately report the information to the Hindalco Industries Compliance Department and refrain from any trading activity until the information is officially disclosed or deemed immaterial. Option D. Proceed with purchasing additional Hindalco Industries shares, as the manager believes the market will eventually recognize the value of the breakthrough. The correct answer is C. Immediately report the information to the Hindalco Industries Compliance Department and refrain from any trading activity until the information is officially disclosed or deemed immaterial. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the company's operational needs with strict adherence to regulatory requirements, specifically concerning insider trading and disclosure obligations. Hindalco Industries, as a publicly listed entity, must ensure all employees understand and comply with these regulations to maintain market integrity and avoid severe penalties. The core challenge lies in interpreting and applying the relevant laws to a situation involving potential non-public information. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the relevant securities laws and internal company policies regarding the handling of material non-public information. This includes recognizing that any information that could reasonably affect an investor's decision to buy, sell, or hold Hindalco Industries shares is considered material. Employees are prohibited from trading on such information or tipping others. The correct approach would be to immediately report the potential insider information to the compliance department and refrain from any trading activity until the information is publicly disclosed or deemed immaterial. This aligns with the principles of fair disclosure and market integrity mandated by securities regulations. An incorrect approach of proceeding with the trade based on personal belief about the information's impact is a direct violation of insider trading laws. This demonstrates a failure to appreciate the definition of material information and the strict prohibition against trading on it. Another incorrect approach, that of discussing the information with colleagues who are not authorized to receive it, constitutes tipping, which is also a serious regulatory offense. This shows a disregard for confidentiality and the potential for market manipulation. Finally, an incorrect approach of assuming the information is already public without verification is negligent and exposes both the individual and the company to significant risk. It bypasses the necessary due diligence required to confirm public dissemination. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves a proactive approach to risk identification, seeking clarification from the compliance department when in doubt, and always erring on the side of caution when dealing with potentially material non-public information. A robust internal control system and regular training on compliance are crucial for fostering a culture of integrity within Hindalco Industries. Question 12. The investigation demonstrates that a recent operational change at Hindalco Industries' manufacturing plant has inadvertently led to an increase in wastewater discharge that may exceed permitted environmental limits. The plant manager, under pressure to meet production targets, has asked the site environmental officer to monitor the situation closely, but not to escalate it until a definitive breach is confirmed, suggesting that the current levels are likely within acceptable tolerance and any immediate reporting could disrupt production schedules. What is the most appropriate course of action for the site environmental officer? Option A. Immediately report the potential noncompliance to the designated internal compliance department and the relevant environmental regulatory authority, while also initiating an internal investigation to quantify the discharge and identify mitigation strategies. Option B. Proceed with production as usual, assuming the current levels are within acceptable tolerance, and only report if a formal notice of violation is received from the regulatory authority. Option C. discreetly attempt to adjust operational parameters to reduce the discharge without informing management or regulatory bodies, hoping to bring it within limits before any issues arise. Option D. Continue to monitor the wastewater discharge levels as instructed by the plant manager, gathering more data to confirm a breach before reporting, to avoid unnecessary disruption. Correct answer is A. Immediately report the potential noncompliance to the designated internal compliance department and the relevant environmental regulatory authority, while also initiating an internal investigation to quantify the discharge and identify mitigation strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a candidate at Hindalco Industries due to the inherent conflict between business objectives and ethical conduct, particularly concerning environmental compliance. The pressure to meet production targets can create a temptation to overlook or downplay environmental concerns, which could have significant legal, financial, and reputational consequences for Hindalco. Careful judgment is required to balance operational efficiency with regulatory adherence and corporate social responsibility. The correct approach involves prioritizing immediate reporting of the potential environmental noncompliance to the relevant internal and external authorities, even if it means a temporary disruption to production. This aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and environmental stewardship, which are increasingly mandated by regulatory frameworks. Specifically, under Indian environmental laws and company policies, there is a duty to report any suspected breaches of environmental regulations promptly. This proactive disclosure allows for timely investigation and remediation, mitigating potential harm and demonstrating a commitment to compliance. It also protects Hindalco from more severe penalties that could arise from a delayed or concealed violation. An incorrect approach that involves delaying the report to gather more information before escalating would be professionally unacceptable. This delay could be interpreted as an attempt to conceal the issue or avoid responsibility, potentially leading to further environmental damage and more severe legal repercussions for Hindalco. It violates the spirit of transparency and accountability expected under environmental regulations. Another incorrect approach, which is to proceed with production while hoping the issue resolves itself, is also ethically and legally flawed. This demonstrates a disregard for environmental protection and regulatory obligations, exposing Hindalco to significant fines, operational shutdowns, and reputational damage. It prioritizes short-term gains over long-term sustainability and legal compliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes ethical considerations and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Identifying the core issue and its potential impact: environmental, legal, financial, reputational. 2. Consulting relevant internal policies and external regulations. 3. Escalating concerns through established reporting channels immediately, without attempting to manage or conceal the issue independently. 4. Seeking guidance from legal and compliance departments when uncertainty exists. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are made in a responsible, ethical, and legally sound manner, safeguarding both the individual and the organization. Question 13. The analysis reveals that Hindalco Industries is considering a significant expansion of its manufacturing facility, which may involve changes to its waste disposal processes. To ensure compliance with environmental regulations, what is the most appropriate course of action for Hindalco Industries? Option A. Proceed with the expansion and address any environmental concerns that arise during or after the construction phase. Option B. Implement the expansion using existing waste disposal methods and only modify them if explicitly mandated by environmental authorities. Option C. Prioritize meeting production targets for the expansion and defer detailed environmental impact studies until after the facility is operational. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive environmental impact assessment and obtain all necessary regulatory approvals before commencing any expansion activities. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the expansion and address any environmental concerns that arise during or after the construction phase. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Hindalco Industries due to the inherent conflict between achieving operational efficiency and adhering to stringent environmental regulations. The pressure to meet production targets can create a temptation to overlook or downplay potential environmental impacts, requiring careful judgment to balance business objectives with legal and ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves proactively engaging with regulatory bodies and conducting thorough environmental impact assessments before commencing any new project. This demonstrates a commitment to compliance and responsible corporate citizenship. Specifically, Hindalco Industries must ensure that all proposed activities align with the prevailing environmental laws and guidelines applicable in its operating jurisdiction. This includes obtaining necessary permits, implementing mitigation measures for identified risks, and maintaining transparent communication with regulators. Such an approach is ethically sound and legally mandated, safeguarding the company from penalties and reputational damage. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the project without adequate environmental clearance, assuming that minor deviations will not be detected or will be overlooked. This disregards the fundamental principle of regulatory compliance and carries significant legal risks, including fines, operational shutdowns, and potential criminal charges. Another incorrect approach is to conduct a superficial environmental assessment that fails to identify all potential risks or proposes inadequate mitigation strategies. This is ethically questionable, as it undermines the spirit of environmental protection and can lead to unforeseen environmental damage, resulting in long-term liabilities for Hindalco Industries. A third incorrect approach is to delay or obstruct regulatory inspections or information requests. This behavior suggests a lack of transparency and can be interpreted as an attempt to conceal non-compliance, further exacerbating legal and reputational consequences. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory adherence. This involves a thorough understanding of all applicable environmental laws and regulations, a commitment to due diligence in all project planning phases, and a culture that encourages open communication and reporting of potential compliance issues. When faced with conflicting pressures, professionals must escalate concerns through appropriate channels and seek guidance to ensure that decisions are made in accordance with legal and ethical standards. Question 14. The control framework reveals a potential weakness in the expense reporting system at Hindalco Industries that could allow for minor, unintentional misclassifications, though no deliberate fraud is suspected. As a junior analyst tasked with reviewing these reports, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Document the potential weakness and escalate it to the internal audit department for review and remediation. Option B. Attempt to correct the misclassifications directly in the system without consulting management or internal audit. Option C. Highlight the potential weakness in a personal note but proceed with approving the expense reports as usual. Option D. Ignore the minor weakness as it is unlikely to have a material impact on the company's financial statements. The correct answer is A. Document the potential weakness and escalate it to the internal audit department for review and remediation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a candidate at Hindalco Industries due to the inherent conflict between achieving business objectives and adhering to ethical and regulatory standards. The pressure to meet targets can sometimes lead individuals to consider shortcuts or overlook potential compliance issues. Careful judgment is required to navigate these pressures responsibly. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and escalating potential control weaknesses to the appropriate internal channels. This demonstrates a commitment to the company's integrity and adherence to its internal policies and relevant Indian regulatory frameworks governing corporate governance and financial reporting. By raising concerns through established reporting lines, the individual is fulfilling their duty of care and contributing to the robustness of Hindalco Industries' control environment, thereby preventing potential regulatory breaches and reputational damage. This aligns with principles of good corporate citizenship and the expectations of regulatory bodies like SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India, concerning internal controls and disclosures. An incorrect approach of overlooking the issue or attempting to resolve it independently without proper authorization or expertise risks exacerbating the problem. Ignoring a control weakness could lead to misstatements in financial reports, which would be a direct violation of the Companies Act, 2013, and SEBI regulations. Attempting to fix it without following established procedures might introduce new risks or fail to address the root cause, potentially leading to further control breakdowns. Another incorrect approach, such as selectively reporting only the positive aspects while omitting the control weakness, constitutes a failure of transparency and could be interpreted as a deliberate attempt to mislead stakeholders, violating ethical codes of conduct and potentially contravening provisions related to truthful reporting. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This involves a systematic process of identifying potential issues, assessing their impact, consulting relevant internal policies and procedures, and escalating concerns through designated channels. When faced with a control weakness, the professional reasoning should be: 1. Recognize the issue and its potential implications. 2. Consult Hindalco's internal control policies and the Companies Act, 2013 for guidance. 3. Report the weakness through the appropriate internal reporting mechanism, e.g., to a supervisor, internal audit, or compliance department. 4. Cooperate fully with any subsequent investigation or remediation efforts. This structured approach ensures that issues are addressed comprehensively and in accordance with legal and ethical obligations. Question 15. To address the challenge of improving manufacturing efficiency at Hindalco Industries, which approach to process optimization would best ensure compliance with Indian environmental regulations and ethical sourcing standards? Option A. Conducting a thorough review of current processes to identify inefficiencies, followed by proposing and vetting optimization solutions against relevant Indian environmental legislation and Hindalco Industries' ethical sourcing guidelines before implementation. Option B. Prioritizing the rapid deployment of any identified efficiency improvements to gain a competitive edge, with a plan to address potential regulatory or ethical issues retrospectively. Option C. Implementing process changes that significantly reduce operational costs, even if they require a review of existing waste disposal methods to align with environmental norms. Option D. Adopting new production techniques observed in international markets that promise higher output, without a detailed assessment of their compatibility with Indian environmental laws and ethical sourcing policies. The correct answer is C. Implementing process changes that significantly reduce operational costs, even if they require a review of existing waste disposal methods to align with environmental norms. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for Hindalco Industries in optimizing its manufacturing processes. The core difficulty lies in balancing the drive for efficiency and cost reduction with the imperative to adhere to stringent environmental regulations and maintain ethical sourcing practices. A hasty or ill-informed approach to process optimization could inadvertently lead to non-compliance, reputational damage, and potential legal repercussions. Therefore, careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed changes are not only economically beneficial, but also legally sound and ethically responsible. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of current processes, identifying bottlenecks and inefficiencies, and then proposing solutions that are vetted against Hindalco Industries' compliance obligations under Indian environmental laws and the company's internal ethical sourcing guidelines. This approach is correct because it prioritizes regulatory adherence and ethical considerations from the outset. By integrating compliance checks into the optimization planning phase, Hindalco Industries can proactively mitigate risks associated with environmental pollution, resource depletion, and unethical labor practices. This aligns with the principles of sustainable business operations and corporate social responsibility, which are increasingly important in the current regulatory and stakeholder landscape. Incorrect approaches analysis. Focusing solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory implications is an incorrect approach. This could lead to the adoption of cheaper, but environmentally damaging, production methods or the use of non-compliant raw materials, directly violating Indian environmental protection laws and potentially leading to fines, operational shutdowns, and severe reputational harm. Implementing changes based on industry best practices observed in other regions, without a thorough assessment of their applicability and compliance within the Indian legal framework, is also an incorrect approach. What is permissible or standard in one jurisdiction may be illegal or unethical in India, leading to non-compliance with local environmental standards and labor laws. Prioritizing speed of implementation over thorough due diligence, even if the proposed changes appear beneficial on the surface, is another incorrect approach. This haste can overlook critical regulatory requirements or ethical considerations, such as the responsible disposal of waste products or the fair treatment of workers involved in the supply chain, thereby exposing Hindalco Industries to significant legal and ethical risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should adopt a decision-making framework that integrates risk assessment and compliance checks into every stage of process optimization. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulatory landscape in India relevant to Hindalco's operations, including Environmental Protection Acts, Pollution Control Board guidelines, and any specific directives applicable to the metals and mining sector. 2. Conducting a thorough impact assessment of any proposed process change on environmental parameters and the supply chain. 3. Engaging legal and compliance teams early in the planning process to ensure proposed solutions meet all statutory requirements and ethical standards. 4. Prioritizing solutions that offer a dual benefit of efficiency gains and enhanced environmental or social performance. 5. Maintaining transparent documentation of the decision-making process, including the rationale for selecting or rejecting certain optimization strategies, with clear justification based on regulatory compliance and ethical considerations. Question 16. The review process indicates that a significant new contract secured by Hindalco Industries involves complex payment terms and performance milestones that could impact revenue recognition. The internal finance team is considering an aggressive accounting treatment that would recognize a substantial portion of the revenue upfront, potentially boosting short-term financial performance. However, there is uncertainty about whether this treatment fully complies with applicable accounting standards and regulatory disclosure requirements. What is the most appropriate course of action for the finance department to ensure ethical and compliant financial reporting for Hindalco Industries? Option A. Instruct the finance team to adopt the aggressive accounting treatment and document it internally without seeking external validation. Option B. Delay the accounting recognition of the revenue until the payment terms and milestones are fully met, regardless of the potential impact on short-term performance. Option C. Proceed with the aggressive accounting treatment, as it aligns with the company's goal of maximizing shareholder value and securing future business. Option D. Consult with the independent auditors to seek their guidance and agreement on the appropriate accounting treatment for the contract. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the aggressive accounting treatment, as it aligns with the company's goal of maximizing shareholder value and securing future business. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between a potential business opportunity and the ethical obligation to maintain the integrity of financial reporting and investor confidence. The pressure to secure a significant contract for Hindalco Industries must be balanced against the strict requirements of accounting standards and regulatory disclosure. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any accounting treatment is not only technically compliant, but also transparent and free from manipulation. The correct approach involves seeking clarification from the independent auditors regarding the appropriate accounting treatment for the complex transaction. This upholds professional integrity by prioritizing accurate financial reporting over short-term gains. Specifically, engaging with the auditors ensures that the accounting treatment aligns with the relevant accounting standards, e.g., Indian accounting standards, if applicable, or general principles of revenue recognition and asset valuation, and regulatory guidelines for Hindalco Industries. This proactive step demonstrates a commitment to transparency and compliance, safeguarding the company's reputation and investor trust. An incorrect approach would be to unilaterally decide on an aggressive accounting treatment without consulting the auditors. This risks misrepresenting the financial position of Hindalco Industries, potentially violating accounting standards and regulatory requirements. Such an action could be construed as an attempt to manipulate financial results, leading to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of investor confidence. Another incorrect approach would be to delay the decision or avoid discussing the issue with the auditors, hoping the situation resolves itself. This inaction fails to address the accounting uncertainty and could lead to non-compliance if the transaction is recognized improperly. Finally, pressuring the finance team to adopt a favorable but questionable accounting treatment without independent verification is unethical and undermines the principles of sound financial governance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This involves identifying potential conflicts, seeking expert advice, such as from auditors or legal counsel, thoroughly understanding relevant regulations and accounting standards, and documenting all decisions and justifications. When faced with complex accounting issues, the default should always be to err on the side of caution and transparency, ensuring that financial statements accurately reflect the economic substance of transaction. Question 17. What factors determine the appropriate course of action for a Hindalco Industries employee when a supplier offers a gift of moderate value during a routine business meeting? Option A. The potential for the gift to influence business decisions, adherence to Hindalco Industries Code of Conduct, and relevant Indian corporate governance guidelines. Option B. The employee's personal relationship with the supplier's representative and the perceived value of the gift to the employee. Option C. The employee's ability to reciprocate the gift with something of equal or greater value and the supplier's overall importance to Hindalco Industries. Option D. The employee's immediate need for such an item and the likelihood of the gift being discovered by other employees. The correct answer is B. The employee's personal relationship with the supplier's representative and the perceived value of the gift to the employee. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an employee at Hindalco Industries regarding the ethical and regulatory implications of accepting gifts from a supplier. The core difficulty lies in balancing business relationships with the imperative to maintain integrity and avoid conflicts of interest, which are paramount in corporate governance and compliance. The potential for even a seemingly minor gift to be perceived as an inducement or to create an obligation requires careful judgment and adherence to established policies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves politely declining the gift while reaffirming the value of the business relationship. This upholds Hindalco Industries' commitment to ethical conduct and compliance with its internal code of conduct and relevant Indian corporate governance guidelines. Such guidelines typically emphasize transparency, fairness, and the avoidance of any situation that could compromise professional judgment or create an appearance of impropriety. Declining the gift directly addresses the potential for a conflict of interest and reinforces the principle that business decisions should be based on merit, not personal favors. Incorrect approach is analysis. Accepting the gift without question and without reporting it to management is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. It violates principles of transparency and could be construed as a breach of trust, potentially leading to accusations of bribery or undue influence, which are serious offenses under Indian law and corporate governance standards. Accepting the gift and then reporting it to management after the fact is also problematic. While reporting is a step in the right direction, accepting the gift first implies that the employee was willing to compromise their integrity. This still creates an appearance of impropriety and undermines the proactive stance required by ethical guidelines. The focus should be on preventing the conflict of interest from arising in the first place. Accepting the gift but offering a reciprocal gift of greater value is an attempt to level the playing field, but fundamentally misunderstands the issue. The core problem is the acceptance of a gift that could influence judgment. Exchanging gifts of escalating value does not resolve the conflict of interest. It merely perpetuates it and could even escalate the situation, potentially leading to more serious ethical and legal repercussions. Professional reasoning. Professionals at Hindalco Industries should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to the company's code of conduct and relevant Indian regulations. This involves 1. Identifying potential conflicts of interest or situations that could create an appearance of impropriety. 2. Consulting company policy on gifts, hospitality, and entertainment. 3. If in doubt, seeking guidance from their manager or the compliance department. 4. Acting with integrity and transparency in all business dealings, ensuring that decisions are always made in the best interest of the company. Question 18. System analysis indicates that a procurement officer at Hindalco Industries, responsible for evaluating bids from potential suppliers for a critical raw material, has a close personal friendship with the owner of one of the bidding companies. The procurement officer is aware of the company's strict policies against conflicts of interest and the importance of maintaining an impartial selection process. The officer is considering how to proceed with the evaluation. Option A. Avoid any mention of the relationship and hope that it does not become an issue during or after the evaluation. Option B. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to their direct manager and the compliance department, requesting guidance on recusal or appropriate oversight for the evaluation process. Option C. Proceed with the evaluation as normal, confident in their ability to remain objective and make a decision solely based on the merits of the bid. Option D. Subtly influence the evaluation criteria to favor the friend's company, believing their personal connection warrants consideration. The correct answer is B. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to their direct manager and the compliance department, requesting guidance on recusal or appropriate oversight for the evaluation process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an employee at Hindalco Industries due to the potential conflict between personal financial interests and the company's ethical standards and regulatory obligations. The core of the challenge lies in maintaining objectivity and avoiding any appearance of impropriety when dealing with a supplier who is also a personal acquaintance. The regulatory framework for Hindalco Industries, which would align with general principles of corporate governance and ethical conduct expected in the Indian business environment, mandates transparency, fairness, and the avoidance of conflicts of interest. The correct approach involves a clear and immediate disclosure of the personal relationship to the appropriate authority within Hindalco Industries. This demonstrates integrity and adherence to the company's code of conduct and any relevant regulations concerning procurement and supplier relationships. By disclosing, the employee ensures that any decision-making process regarding the supplier is conducted with full awareness of the potential for bias, allowing for appropriate oversight and mitigation strategies to be implemented. This proactive step safeguards both the employee's professional standing and Hindalco Industries' reputation and compliance. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with evaluating the supplier without disclosure, even if the employee believes they can remain objective. This creates a hidden conflict of interest, violating ethical principles and potentially company policy. It undermines the fairness of the procurement process, as other suppliers may not have an equal opportunity. Furthermore, if the relationship is discovered later, it could lead to severe disciplinary action, reputational damage for the employee and Hindalco Industries, and potential regulatory scrutiny for failing to implement proper internal controls. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to subtly favor the acquaintance's company, believing that the personal relationship justifies preferential treatment. This is a direct breach of ethical conduct and likely violates procurement regulations that demand competitive and merit-based selection. Such actions erode trust, compromise the integrity of business operations, and expose Hindalco Industries to risks of unfair competition and potential legal challenges. The professional decision-making process in such situation should involve a clear understanding of the company's code of conduct and conflict of interest policies. When a potential conflict arises, the employee should err on the side of caution and disclose the situation promptly to their supervisor or the designated compliance officer. This allows the company to assess the situation and provide guidance on how to proceed, ensuring that all actions are compliant and ethically sound. The focus should always be on protecting the interests of Hindalco Industries and maintaining a fair and transparent business environment. Question 19. The assessment process reveals that the current recruitment cycle for entry-level engineering roles at Hindalco Industries is experiencing significant delays, impacting the timely onboarding of new talent. To address this, a proposal is put forth to streamline the initial screening phase by reducing the number of technical questions in the aptitude test and shortening the duration of the first-round interviews. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to professional best practices for process optimization in hiring? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive data analysis of the current assessment process to identify specific bottlenecks and areas for improvement. Then pilot test revised screening criteria and interview protocols to measure their impact on efficiency and candidate quality before full implementation. Option B. Focus solely on reducing the time spent in each assessment stage, assuming that faster processing will inherently lead to a more efficient and effective outcome for Hindalco Industries. Option C. Rely on the subjective feedback from the hiring managers regarding which parts of the assessment are perceived as time-consuming, and make adjustments based on these opinions to speed up the process. Option D. Immediately implement the proposed changes to reduce the number of technical questions and shorten interview durations to expedite the hiring process, as delays are negatively impacting onboarding. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive data analysis of the current assessment process to identify specific bottlenecks and areas for improvement. Then pilot test revised screening criteria and interview protocols to measure their impact on efficiency and candidate quality before full implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficiency and cost-effectiveness in the hiring process with the imperative to maintain fairness, transparency, and compliance with relevant regulations. Hindalco Industries, as a large organization, must ensure its assessment procedures are not only effective in identifying suitable candidates, but also legally sound and ethically defensible. The challenge lies in optimizing the process without compromising the integrity of candidate evaluation or inadvertently creating barriers to entry for qualified individuals. The correct approach involves a systematic review and refinement of the existing assessment methods, focusing on data-driven insights to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement. This approach is professionally sound because it aligns with principles of continuous improvement and operational excellence, which are implicitly expected in corporate environments. Specifically, it allows for the identification of inefficiencies that might lead to delays or increased costs, thereby optimizing resource allocation. Furthermore, by focusing on objective data, it helps ensure that any changes made are based on evidence rather than subjective bias, promoting fairness and equity in the hiring process. This aligns with general principles of good corporate governance and responsible HR practices, aiming to create a robust and defensible hiring framework. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based on anecdotal evidence or personal preferences without a thorough analysis of the assessment data. This could lead to unintended consequences, such as inadvertently disadvantaging certain groups of candidates or overlooking critical skills. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed of assessment over the thoroughness of evaluation. While efficiency is important, a rushed process might fail to accurately gauge a candidate's suitability, leading to poor hiring decisions. This could also raise concerns about fairness and due diligence, potentially exposing Hindalco Industries to legal challenges or reputational damage. A third incorrect approach would be to adopt a one-size-fits-all optimization strategy without considering the specific requirements of different roles within Hindalco Industries. This could lead to an assessment process that is either too demanding or too superficial for certain positions, failing to effectively identify the best talent for each specific need. Professionals should approach process optimization by first establishing clear objectives and metrics for success. This involves understanding what optimized means in the context of Hindalco Industries' hiring goals. They should then gather and analyze relevant data on the current assessment process, identifying specific pain points and areas of inefficiency. Based on this analysis, potential solutions should be developed and evaluated for their impact on efficiency, fairness, and effectiveness. Pilot testing and iterative refinement are crucial steps before full implementation. This structured, data-driven, and iterative approach ensures that optimizations are well-founded, effective, and aligned with both business objectives and ethical considerations. Question 20. Risk assessment procedures indicate that an employee at Hindalco Industries has become aware of a significant, non-public development concerning a major new contract that is expected to positively impact the company's share price upon announcement. The employee is considering whether to purchase additional Hindalco Industries shares before the public disclosure of this information. Option A. Purchase additional Hindalco Industries shares immediately, as the information is not yet public and represents a legitimate opportunity for personal investment gain. Option B. Inform a close friend about the upcoming contract, suggesting they consider investing in Hindalco Industries shares before the announcement. Option C. Wait for the information to be publicly announced and then purchase shares, believing that the market reaction will still allow for a profit. Option D. Refrain from purchasing any Hindalco Industries shares and immediately report the information and the potential conflict of interest to Hindalco Industries Compliance Department. Correct answer is A. Purchase additional Hindalco Industries shares immediately, as the information is not yet public and represents a legitimate opportunity for personal investment gain. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an employee at Hindalco Industries due to the potential conflict between personal gain and the company's ethical obligations and regulatory compliance. The core of the dilemma lies in the employee's knowledge of a significant, non-public development that could impact the company's stock price. Acting on this information for personal benefit would constitute insider trading, a serious violation of securities laws and ethical codes. The correct approach involves prioritizing ethical conduct and regulatory compliance by refraining from trading and reporting the information through appropriate internal channels. This upholds the principle of fairness in the market, protects Hindalco Industries from legal repercussions and reputational damage, and demonstrates integrity. Specifically, securities regulations in India, such as the SEBI Prohibition of Insider Trading Regulations, 2015, strictly prohibit individuals in possession of unpublished price-sensitive information, UPSI, from trading in the company's securities or communicating such information to others. Adhering to these regulations is paramount. An incorrect approach would be to trade on the information before it becomes public. This directly violates insider trading laws, which are designed to ensure a level playing field for all investors. Such an action would expose the employee and potentially Hindalco Industries to severe penalties, including fines and imprisonment, and would severely damage the company's reputation for corporate governance. Another incorrect approach would be to subtly hint at the information to a friend, family member who then trades. While not directly trading oneself, this constitutes tipping, which is also a violation of insider trading regulations. The intent is to profit from non-public information, and facilitating such profit for others is as illegal as profiting directly. A third incorrect approach would be to do nothing and simply wait for the information to be released, but also not to report it internally. While this avoids direct violation of trading laws, it fails to uphold the employee's duty of loyalty and ethical responsibility to the company. By not reporting the information through the proper channels, the employee misses an opportunity to ensure the company is prepared for the announcement and potentially mitigate any negative market reactions, and also fails to adhere to internal policies that often mandate reporting of potential compliance breaches. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the company's code of conduct and relevant securities laws. When faced with potential UPSI, the immediate steps should be: 1. Do not trade or communicate the information. 2. Consult the company's insider trading policy. 3. Report the information and the situation to the designated compliance officer or legal department. This ensures that the company can manage the information appropriately and that the employee acts with integrity and in full compliance with legal and ethical standards.